All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the state. The vulnerability, or will I say the vulnerable ones in our society, is a responsibility of the able ones, and the able ones with capacity is for us to empower them. I believe the neglect of the vulnerable is an indication of weakness of what or will I say of the society, and of course not the vulnerables, but the fact that the empowerment is an additional strength of that society. Again, I welcome you to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, your executive producer, your scriptwriter, your chief host, David. I wear many caps on this platform. All right, guys, important for us to hear what on this day in history segment asks for us. When I return, I'll give my 2 cents about it. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. My takeaway from on this day history segment under the leadership of the president of Olusegun Obasanjo, and of course the financial minister Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Nigeria secured the cancellation of about $18 billion of its external debt in exchange for a $12 billion repayment. And of course, the agreement allowed the country, to reallocate funds towards the critical development projects in terms of infrastructure and social services, settling the stage for economic growth and reform. I don't know what to say in terms of the subsequent administration after Obasanjo with regards to debt relief. It's a debt upon pancaked for us as far as I'm concerned with our economy today. I really don't want to delve into that, but on this initial segment today is reminding us how these two personalities were able to relieve us of the debt on ground at the time. I think it's important for us to get a quick message from my sponsors. When I return, we'll dive straight to the topic at hand. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with us. The International Labour Organization, ILO, estimates that globally 15% of people have a disability, but in low and in middle income countries like Nigeria, unemployment rates for individuals with disabilities, including Down syndrome, can reach as high as 80%. According to World Health Organization, that's WHO, globally, around 3,000 to 5,000 children were born annually with Down syndrome. In Nigeria, lack of awareness and cultural misconception amplify the stigma faced by this individual. So today I turned my focus to a topic that doesn't get nearly much attention as it deserves. Less supported healthcare courses in Nigeria, such as Down syndrome, autism, and other developmental disorder. So we will also discuss the upcoming 2024 Gala and Award Night hosted by the Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria under the theme End the Stereotype, the economic empowerment for all. But before I bring in my guest, I think it's important for us to play our profile, and when I return, we will be speaking with her. She is Mrs. Kike Dennis. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, welcome to the show. This is Kike Dennis. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you doing today? Let's start from there.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for creating time to create more awareness on the issue at hand. And I think the first conversation I'll be bringing to fall is because according to WHO, if you listen to my intro earlier where I was talking about globally rather around 3,000 to 5,000 children are born annually with Down syndrome. In Nigeria, lack of awareness, if you ask me, for cultural misconception amplify this stigma faced by will I say these individuals or personalities, so to speak. So I must ask you, how has this Down syndrome foundation in Nigeria particularly worked, you know, in terms of the change of public perception and to end this stigmatization surrounding Down syndrome? That's my first question. And my second question is the fact that I feel I must ask you, based on your experience, knowing that I've done a bit of research about it, and I must say kudos for all the things that you have been doing and impacting these people. You know, so in your experience, how can we encourage families, I think that's the word now, in terms of our communities, to move beyond the stereotypes and embrace inclusion? Because I feel that there's a lot of stigmatization going on right now with this issue at hand.
Thank you so much for having me once again. Welcome. And really, thank you for bringing the point up. I always like to start, before I go further, as to what Down syndrome is. I think it's very important to define it. What Down syndrome is and what Down syndrome is not.
Okay.
Down syndrome is a genetic disorder. It is a random genetic disorder that causes chromosome number 21 to replicate itself. Okay. What do I mean by that? You have mommy, you have daddy.
I was going to ask.
You have mommy, you have daddy. Each parent has 23 chromosomes. Okay. When they come together, it becomes 46 chromosomes. And when they come together, that's what determines our color, hair, everything about us.
That's why
everything. That's why they say, oh, you look like your mommy, you look like your daddy. It's because of the genetic factor. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes in us. And then when this chromosome number 21 replicates itself, it adds one extra chromosome. We don't know how it happens, but it happens. And when it adds this one chromosome, it now becomes how many? 47 chromosomes, which is not the normal 46 chromosomes. And so when it happens, it affects the physical structure, it affects physical ability, it also affects mainly intellectual ability. So what you and I can process easily, a person with Down syndrome may not be able to process or articulate it quickly. Yeah. Exactly. So we say that given the right intervention, it can be supported. It may not be 100%. There's a spectrum, just like autism and other special needs, from 0 to 100%, depending on the difficulty, you know. But it can be managed. So that's Down syndrome in a nutshell. What it is not a communicable disease. It is not something that jumps, you know, if you sit next to them in church or if you sit next to them in any social gathering. They are human beings, just like you and I. And I always say, we all have some sort of disability. How we can manage this, we all have limitations one way or another. So let's not stigmatize and think that it is contagious. Now, the stigma arises, like you just mentioned. It arises because people don't understand it. When people do not understand, they tend to do what? Shy away from it, try to move away from it, and so on. So we need to start by reducing that stigmatization. And it starts with us. It starts with you and I. It starts with accepting and understanding what it is. Once we know what it is, the fear is reduced. So you ask what we do as an organization to reduce some of this stigma. Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria, which is an organization where I work, excuse me, has been around for 23 years. We have been working closely with partners, with parents, you know, to close this gap. How do we do that? And we've also been working with the government. How do we do that? We try to close this gap and fill in by providing the needed resources that parents need to be able to support their children. We also have a resource center. At our resource center, We provide all kinds of services from educational to vocational and so on for persons with Down syndrome, not just children. We have in our resource center age 8 to age 41. And we don't go, you know, we have classes based on levels. We don't go by chronological age because, like I said, intellectual disability. So you can have somebody age 8 be in class, unfortunately, with somebody age 41. So we do a lot of therapy because persons with Down syndrome, one of the challenges they had, you know, I mentioned physical challenges. They have health challenges. They have serious health challenges, from hole in the heart called congenital health defect, to speech impairment, to eye impairment, to all kinds of different things that, again, can be managed given the right services. So at our foundation, that's what we try to do, to bridge that gap, to support parents.
All right, many thanks for that elaborate submission. Now, let's bring the role of economic empowerment now and supporting individuals with Down syndrome, because I feel that the International Labour Organization, that is the ILO, estimates that globally 15% of people have this disability, but in a low and, will I say, middle income countries, which was one of my introduction to earlier, you know, in terms of the unemployment rates, you know, for individuals with disabilities, including Down syndrome, with high rates as 80%. So my question now is, why is economic empowerment such an essential part of supporting individuals with Down syndrome, and what initiative has your own organization, your foundation launched in this area? Because I feel that money is important in everything that we are doing. So how do you envision businesses and organizations in terms of integrating people with Down syndrome into their workforce? Because I know that in an organization, in a structured organization today, how will you find people like that in the workforce? How do you integrate people? How do you convince, maybe the word is convince now, to say that, okay, this person has a potential or a talent, you know, that can be of added value to your organization?
Thank you so much. So once again, it starts with the stigmatization. I always start and I say, where have you been in Nigeria, even in Lagos State, where you find persons with intellectual disability being engaged? You know, you see persons with visual impairment, you see persons perhaps physical impairment. It's easy to be able to absorb them into the workforce. But someone with intellectual disability is marginalized, so to speak. Why is that? And before I even go to the why, let's talk about why it is important to include persons with disability into the workforce in Nigeria, in Lagos State, all across. Why is it important? It is important because they are also human beings just like you and I. They also need quality of life to be improved, to be elevated. They also need financial sustenance for themselves and for their families. So that's one key reason why they must be engaged. And of course, when they are engaged into society, they're contributing their quota to the economy of the society. So why not engage them? And so we say with persons with intellectual disability, you know, again, because of that intellectual inability, organizations tend to shy away from them, thinking that, oh, maybe they would not be able to process or understand or be engaged fully. But I say that is wrong. So we have two ways. We can engage them in the workforce depending on the severity of the disability, with the right support services, with the right support. Or we can also empower them to be self-sufficient, self-empowerment. In other words, entrepreneurship. We provide at our organization vocational skills. We have students that have gone up to open hairdressing salons. We have them who know how to barb hair. We have them who know how to do some basic things about sewing. We have some who love to do poultry farming. So what are we saying? That giving the right environment, giving the right support system, persons with intellectual disability can go on to be empowered.
So listening to that submission, should we say that awareness and advocacy efforts, you know, by Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria is what is also bringing more of this to be embraced with what you've just shared right now? Because I feel that, you know, Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria that have organized, you know, over 200 advocacy campaigns across the country. So reaching an estimated 500 or 5,000, I stand to be correct, I think about 500 people through media, workshops, you know,
Yes.
most of the things that you've shared right now, school scholarship programs and all. My question now is, what's key milestone as the Down Syndrome, you know, Foundation Nigeria achieved in terms of, you know, advocacy and raising awareness with all that is happening right now? How is it important for the government? Because I know earlier you mentioned the government also being in partnership with your organization. How is the government and the media now, because however we want to look at it, IT, technology, media, you know, must be involved in creating more awareness, more advocacy campaign for Down syndrome. What's the story thus far with these two organizations?
Thank you. So let's start with what we do on a yearly basis to encourage advocacy. Like I mentioned earlier, we've been around for 23 years. 23 years is not easy.
Absolutely,
of doing the same thing.
absolutely.
It was founded by our national president, Mrs. Rose Modi. I'm always so proud to say that, you know, because the struggle started with her own daughter. And so what have we been doing? We do a yearly awareness campaign. And when we do that, in fact, we're in the middle of our awareness campaign now because it's every year in October. So. And every year in October, we have a series of activities lined up where we involve the government, we involve, you know, leaders that are of PWDs, all the different stakeholders to partner with us. We always start with an awareness campaign walk where we let all the other clusters come out with us and let everybody see them. We always say, don't hide your children, I beg of you. If they have some sort of disability or challenge, it's always good to bring them out because you cannot do it alone as a parent. You need support. So we start with advocacy. We start with the awareness campaign. We do right now, as I speak to you, we have a webinar in session.
That is ongoing.
Yes, ongoing. You know, the webinar, we invite a lot of stakeholders, experts in various fields, parent experts in various fields, doctors who also have children with Down syndrome to come and talk to us and encourage the parents how we can begin to partner together. We talk about the government. Let's talk about LASODA to begin with. Lagos State Office of Disability Affairs. You know, we partner with them. They have been supportive, but you know, there's still much more that needs to be done. There are some policies that have been put in place, but they are not being implemented. And so this is one question that is always raised with LASODA. How can we begin to implement some of these policies? Again, it's through engagements. It's through engagements like this and through, you know, awareness campaigns. Then we talk about the media like you. And I thank you for bringing me here today because, you know, the media has a strong role to play in this. And you can reach out to more people than we can, you know. There's still so many out there that have not heard about even Down syndrome and even other disabilities. So with the help of the media, partnering with us, I believe we can reach so many more, so much more, and do so much more. And then we talk about the government. You know, in other parts of the world, the government is a strong supporter and even leads the role in ensuring that persons with disability get their right health support and different support that is needed. Government can help through grants, you know, to organizations like us, to parents, to persons who really are involved in taking care of.
But, you know, listening to you, apologies, I have to cut in through that thought process because I just feel that the access to this healthcare for individuals with Down syndrome is something that I must bring to fore because according to the Federal Ministry of Health, only 3% of children with Down syndrome in Nigeria actually receive that, you know, specialized healthcare. Government's health, you know, expenditure for disability-related care remains very low. You know, so listening to you right now with just 1.5% of the total health budget allocated to disability service in 2023. What are the biggest challenges that these families, you know, face in terms of accessing proper health care for individuals with Down syndrome in Nigeria? Because I just feel that, you know, parents cannot do it alone because they never knew that they were going to have such challenges in their hands. What role can the Nigerian government play in providing a better healthcare now. I'm not talking about whether they are not supporting or not, but a better healthcare infrastructure for our community today.
Thank you. So what are we saying? The government needs to be more engaged. And when I say more engaged, it's a partnership thing. They need to bring all the stakeholders together to begin with and begin to talk about what some of these challenges are and hear from people who or organizations who are very involved and know what the challenges are. And they can now bring everybody together and begin to decide on the way forward. For example, in government state hospitals and so on, there seems to be a disconnect between the hospital and persons with Down syndrome and intellectual disability. So what do we need? We need for them to come together, set some sort of either national grant or something aside that they can now begin to engage the public and those who have such challenges to be able to tap into that. When they tap into a grant or a funding that they can use, they can begin to identify early intervention, needed services, and they also need, one thing I forgot to add, they also need to be able to engage the health professionals. They need to know about it. You'll be surprised to know that a lot of health professionals don't even know what some of these challenges are. They are not trained. So they need to begin to train, and we need to begin to bring everybody
or probably
together.
They just select the aspect that they feel more comfortable or that is making more money, basically. It could be, you know, we keep it real on this platform.
But I think more importantly is, I think here in Nigeria, we tend to identify those health challenges that are more common, if you know what I mean. You know, people are forgetting that there are other health challenges. There's mental health that is not properly addressed. There's the intellectual disability not properly addressed. There's even some rare diseases that you hear of abroad or in other parts of the world that you don't even hear of in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
So that's why government needs to be more involved.
So
the Ministry of Health.
So no matter how much you try to drag in government, let's bring in the role of private organizations in addressing Down syndrome, because I feel that, you know, the need for it from private organization is quite important for us to create more awareness on, because in 2023 I understand that private organizations like the Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria contributed over 100 million in donations, you know, and not just donation but also in resources, you know, towards program benefiting individuals like with Down syndrome, basically, while government support for Down syndrome specific initiative as well was less than 10 million naira or so. I stand to be corrected, but these are the few things that I was able to read up before coming to the studio. So I must ask you, how was the involvement of private organization like the Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria fill the gaps in services for individuals with Down syndrome? And could you at least share some more, you know, success stories of private, you know, public partnerships that have positively, you know, impacted the Down syndrome community? Because however we look at it, we keep pointing fingers at government, we keep looking for government support and all of that. But I feel that there are quite a number of private organizations who are supporting, you know, foundations like you that needs to be brought to fore, and the people that you're also looking out for to say that, okay, you want them on board as well.
Thank you. So I always say, 23 years in the making is not an easy task. We are a non-profit organization, as you know, and so we cannot do this on our own. We've been able to do it for this many years with private organizations who have been very supportive of what we do. They engage, we engage them, and they are very resourceful in making sure that we get the necessary and the much needed support that we have. Case in point, we're having a fundraising dinner this year, and I hope you'll be able to join us. In fact, we have it this Saturday.
On Saturday.
And the whole point of this is what? We want to raise funds. And we do this with partners that have supported us for many years. We also do it with partners that are new, and just go to our website, see all that we're doing. And I'm always proud of what we do at our foundation, because we have the support of Board of Trustees who are seasoned accountants and professionals who do it voluntarily, who I have to meet with every quarter to give account of how all
fantastic.
the donations
I was going to come about transparency
spent.
of how you
Oh,
spend
yes.
the money, yeah.
Of how everything is spent. These, like I said, seasoned accountants, so they look at the financial reports, make sure that everything is being documented and put to good use and put to the use that we say we put it to. So we have a lot of systems in place for that. And so this dinner, the whole purpose of this dinner, if I may add quickly, is we want to build a multi-purpose resource center called Movers House. Why the name Movers? Movers started with the first 5 students that came on board 23 years ago. So it's named after them. It's going to be a multi-purpose, therapeutic facility, a residential facility that we're also going to have some semi-independent for some of our young adults.
That's nice.
You know. And so we have a lot of partners that have joined hands with us on this project. Case in point, we have an architectural firm who is a big one, a top one here in Lagos, who is designing the plan for us. And they have promised us that they're going to see it from beginning to end. Why do we need this facility? We have so many children and so many people out there. We want a facility that can hold up to 200 individuals, and not just Down syndrome, 200 individuals with intellectual disability. That goes for autism, for just you name it, the spectrum. Because we find that there's a gap in this area. What gap is this? Especially a long-term plan for them. What happens when the families are no longer there to support these children or these young adults? Are they just going to be left on their own? You know, what happens? We want a place that goes way beyond us, to be there, to a long-term succession plan where any family will know that when they bring their child or their young adult to this facility, they know that this person or this individual is going to be taken care of. So going back to what you said, we do have a lot of support, but we still need more.
You still need more, all right. All right, we need to create more awareness on those needs for people to come in and partner with you guys. Let's go on a quick break, and when I return, the conversation will continue. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined today's show, today's conversation is about Down syndrome and less supported, healthcare courses in Nigeria. So far, or will I say thus far, we've been having real talk with Mrs. Kike Dennis discussing the importance of advocating for healthcare courses that will I say, don't always make the headlines. And we've been discussing not just the challenges faced by these individuals with Down syndrome, but also how economic empowerment and social integration can help break the stereotypes, and we've also covered the lack of attention these conditions receive and the critical need for more let's say public support and awareness. Maybe that's the word now to use. But ma'am, many thanks with all that you've shared thus far. But let me use this opportunity to quickly open the phone lines. Remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number 0811-88-8113. I hope I pronounced that properly. It will be showing on your screen very soon. And of course, we are streaming live on Facebook, both on Real Talk with Kike platform and of course on YouTube, on Silverbird platform as well on Facebook. Ma'am, for those who are listening to us right now, there are quite a number of conversations that went on during the break, and there's one thing that I feel that I need to quickly bring to fall in terms of the education and skill development for individuals with Down syndrome. And let me quickly quote UNICAF, because UNICAF reports that less than 30% of children and disability, including Down syndrome in Nigeria, are enrolled in schools. I like the fact that you've mentioned earlier in some of your submission how you have engaged these people in skills, different skills and the likes and all of that. But the Nigerian government has allocated just less than 1% of the national educational budget to special education program. How does this foundation now, support the education and the skills development and individuals with Down syndrome? Forget the fact that you guys have taken a step further with the fact that you have support from different organizations and all of that. How do we create more awareness in terms of, bringing the government into place for the barriers that education still exists, and how can we overcome all of these educational barriers in terms of the inclusivity of education? That's my first question. Maybe I don't know if I should, because we are running out of time right now, but I think that question is long. Let me allow you answer that.
Thank you so much. So, talking about education in Lagos State, in Nigeria, you know, we talk about inclusivity, but we don't really have it, unfortunately.
Yes, we don't.
The government may have some schools where they kind of have pilot programs for inclusivity. That's just a very small statistics. How about the private schools? We have so many private schools in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
You know, globally, inclusivity is key. You will find that in most schools globally, they encourage inclusivity where a person with either some form of disability is integrated into normal public system. And that person will have all the support they need, be it speech therapy, occupational therapy, and so on. But we are not there yet in Nigeria. And this inclusion, it needs to come first with the government putting the right policies in place.
I was going to touch on that. Is it the government policies on disability and inclusion in Nigeria that is causing this act? Because I know that there's a disability act that that was passed in 2019, and the mandate is about 5% of employment quota for individuals with disabilities and all of that in public and private sector. So with what you shared now, I don't want you to forget your line of thought. The compliance, you know, in terms of how low it is, and 1% of people with disabilities now is something I think that you need to emphasize more, including this Down syndrome employment. You know, how would you assess the current policies, you know, related to disability and Down syndrome in Nigeria? What areas need more improvement with these policies?
Thank you. So for me, and for I speak for a lot of disability clusters when I say the area that needs improvement, unfortunately, there are policies in place. Maybe we still need to tweak those policies because they're not perfect.
Okay.
We are in 2024, policies must be looked at and continually reviewed and revamped and adapted to what is specific for your state, your country, your locality. Aside from that, you also need to be able to implement it. Unfortunately, we are not in a position to implement. It has to be the government to come out and find a way to ensure that it's implemented. And you don't have to force people. You can implement it by offering incentives, for example, to private entities. There's so many incentives out there that are being done in other states. It could be tax incentives, it could be subsidy incentives, it could be some sort of incentive in the educational sector where you are encouraging them and promoting it. We cannot do it alone, as I said, but these policies have to be implemented.
All right, many thanks for that elaborate submission on policy that needs to be acted or implemented. So let me bring to fore mental health, because before coming to the studio, leaving my corporate office, I posted something on mental health, and quite a number of people have been reacting to it. That could it be because I'm talking about this today? I said, okay, I never thought about it, but let me now, you know, like, I think it's interwoven with each other, with mental health, emotional well-being of families. I feel that there was a study that I read, you know, days back about the Nigerian Medical Association that found, that over 70% of parents now of children with Down syndrome reporting that they are experiencing mental health breakdown with the challenges at hand due to the societal stigmatization or lack of support from, you know, different parastatals or different communities or government parastatals and all of that. What mental health support services are currently available for families now of those individuals with Down syndrome in Nigeria? Because I feel that it's something that we need to also create more awareness on. How can we be better in terms of this support for emotional well-being of caregivers, of families, navigating these challenges of raising a child with Down syndrome? Because earlier you also mentioned how you feel that what if the parent passes? What happens to the child? You know, what's the next stage when such situation, you find yourself in such situation? How can people navigate these challenges?
Thank you. So let me start by using our organization as an example. I say that we are a residential resource center. We offer you know, the academic year is similar to Lagos State schools, where the students are brought in by the parents. Every term they stay with us, and at the end of every term they go home. And why do we do this? It's a sort of respite for parents, because like you said, it does affect mental health well-being.
Of course.
It does, not only that, financial strain on them, you know, emotional strain on them. The fact that it's a stigma. You know, I go out, in fact, I would have loved to come here with some of our self-advocate students, because everywhere I go, I bring them. Because it not only shows the world who we are speaking or talking about, it's always good for people to know. It's a
So
form
you're
of
going
awareness.
to be showing some of them on the day of your anniversary, right?
They're all going to be there.
Okay.
They're all going to be at the event center performing, as a matter of fact. Different sectors. We're so excited about it. So what am I saying? Yes, mental health is there. Emotional distress. How do we do it? We begin by doing what we do at the foundation, which is offering respite to parents who perhaps cannot even go to work. Some of them have full-time parents when they're taking care of the child or the adult at home. But organizations like ours can help support. And that's where we need partnership and have a holistic approach, where as we're taking care of the students, we're also supporting parents with resources.
All right, many thanks for that support to our parents. Now, let's bring it back to our cultural, will I say, mentality. You know, I've heard quite a number of people that say that, oh, sometimes, you know, what also causes Down syndrome in children is, you know, parents who give birth late. You know, imagine a 40-something-year-old woman having a child, or a 50-something-year-old woman, or a 60-year-old man having a child after, you know, the prime time of their years and all of that. I want you to speak to the issue at hand. Do you think is one of the causes of this Down syndrome, you know, that parents go through, or they put their children at risk?
Okay, thank you. So research shows, like you rightfully said, that it does occur in older women. So, but it's not 100% that it's all older women that are going to have children with Down syndrome. No, that's not it. We have heard of many cases where older women have children and the children are fine. So, younger children, younger parents as well.
Yeah, I heard so that
younger parents,
younger women too are beginning to have Down.
Yes, they're beginning to have it. So, like I said, this is just a genetic random change that research is still being done. We don't know what causes it, but we do know that you have tests out there that can test whether or not you can have a child with Down syndrome when you're pregnant.
When you what?
When you're pregnant, when the woman is pregnant, there's a test.
So when you're pregnant, do you think one can find out from pregnancy if there's any abnormalities with the child or something like that? I'm just thinking aloud.
Yes, with Down syndrome, there's a test. I can't remember the name. I'm sure the medical doctors know that test. But there's a test that can be done while the child is in the womb. They do the amniotic fluid test. But it's a very expensive test.
I know, I heard. I did a bit of research regarding that.
I don't even know if they do it in Nigeria.
So we'll stay, moving on to another, this might be my last question to you, because I believe that we are running out of time and they've started running commentary in my ears. You know, looking ahead, you know, the future of Down syndrome advocacy in Nigeria now is something I want to bring to fore, because I feel that the future of Down syndrome advocacy in Nigeria depends on the continued support that, or will I say not just support, you know, in terms of legislation, in terms of societal change, you know, our mentality towards, you know, stereotyping people and all of that. What are your hopes for the future of Down syndrome advocacy in Nigeria, and what needs to happen next to keep the momentum going? Because no matter how much we do this, I don't want it to be a one-off thing, you know, and after this interview, people just go back, or after your anniversary, people just go back to their regular routines, because, you know, life catches up with every one of us. How can people who are not directly affected by Down syndrome, you know, contribute to building a more inclusive society from all what you people have done thus far, from your own experience? In 1 minute, please, if you can.
They need to support those areas we need supporting. Persons who do not have disabilities need to support persons with disabilities, because we are all one. We are a community. And it takes, again, like I said, a holistic approach. making sure government is involved, making sure the healthcare system is involved, particularly the healthcare system, to make sure that persons with Down syndrome are not marginalized. And of course, organizations like us.
Yeah.
Organizations like us, we will continue to advocate. We will continue to increase and create more awareness, like we do every October, like we do in March. It's a global one in March, so we'll continue doing
so
that.
It shouldn't be a two-time thing in a year. It must be a thing that we must.
It's ongoing.
It's fantastic. But many thanks for all the wonderful work that you've been doing, impacting the society at large. And I wish you the very best. May God continue to, be with you as well. Because you people that do all these things, I feel like everybody have their own little challenges here and there. But for you to actually detach yourself from that and also just, put a smile on somebody, so God will continue to be with you guys.
Thank you so
on this one, I think before I let you go, you don't need to stand up here. There's a last segment of the show that we call Trending Stories. These are stories that bind us as Nigerians. And this is where I, as a host, have an opinion. This is where I can express my fundamental human right. And the first trending story that caught my attention is that of the president and the VP that is out of the country. And as much as we like to criticize or in terms of criticism to make our leaders more transparent and more accountable in the leadership affairs, like I said earlier, this is where I can exercise my opinion as a host. It's also important to also stay focused and unbiased with our criticism. There's nowhere in our law that states that the president and his vice can be out of the country simultaneously, but public opinions, are just being swabbed by our feelings, rather than being guided by the law. I know that one of the laws as well is that, if the president is leaving the country and is, transferring power to the vice president, they must write the House of Assembly. There are about 3 laws and all of that. But it's important to acknowledge that just like every public servant, the president is human and deserves a holiday. Leadership is demanding and is a time break that allows those in power to recharge and return with renewed energy to tackle the nation's pressing issues. So I feel that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is currently on a working vacation, which means that while he's taking some personal time to rest, he remains fully engaged in the business of running the country. This approach is reflective, if you ask me, it's my opinion, reflective of modern leadership. The Gen Zs of today, even though I'm not in their group, sometimes I try to tap to how they think, how they process things and all of that, where physical presence in the country does not mean the absence of governance. So in a digital age, IT age that we are in today, a leader can remain effective and connected to national matters regardless of their location. We all do it as leaders in our various fields. So the notion being spread by mischief makers, that there's a leadership vacuum, is false, an attempt to create unnecessary concern of controversy. That's my opinion. This is why I exercise my opinion as a host. So guys, allow me be. So additionally, unlike previous administration where the president's time away was often not communicated transparently, this government has taken a more open approach, however you look at it, in terms of the public being informed of the president's vacation, his work itinerary, offering a level of accountability and transparency that is commendable. Yes, because the vice president, who is also currently out of the country now on an official visit to Sweden, continues to work for Nigerians' interests, showing that even while traveling, both leaders remain focused on nation's progress. So, moreover, all other critical arms of government are functioning as expected. Yes, I'm saying that, because the Senate president, the ministers, the service chiefs, and other senior officials are in their respective roles, ensuring that there is no disruption in governance in terms of Nigerian leadership structure, which I feel is robust. So there are well-established systems that I believe that are in place that allows the machinery of government, to continue to work smoothly, even when the top 2 leaders are out of the country. But this isn't an unprecedented situation, let me put it out there either, because we've seen a similar scenarios before, such as in 2022, when both former President Buhari and former Vice President Obasanjo were out of the country at the same time. Despite their absence, the government continued to operate effectively. So as it does now, I feel that in today's global or globalized world, where virtual communication now is seamless, leaders can manage national affairs from wherever they are, as long as there is the will and infrastructure supports such arrangement, I feel that, well, we must find a balance with our thought process. Lastly, the fact that I must emphasize on the crucial aspect of the public in terms of how they understand that the president is on holiday, not a retreat from responsibility, but rather a necessary pause that allows him to maintain peak performance. You know, the constitution and the governance system are designed to accommodate such periods, ensuring that the government functions pretty well, and the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that we have been seeing thus far in terms of transparency in sharing his vacation details and the active engagement of his team during this period, you know, is another thing that I believe that has been brought to fall in terms of the accountability and effective governance and continuation in leadership. Unfortunately, I'm being they started running commentary in my ears that we cannot take the second one, but let me the second trending story. But let me ask you, what's your take with this story? I'm sure that you must have stumbled on the social media that I think before we came to the studio, you are at a webinar. It's part of the thing that I'm trying to emphasize. You were in the studio here, but you joined them virtually. Yes, what's your take on this?
Okay, so you know, I would first of all say running a country is different from running either a small company or another. You know, so as long as the president and the vice president has someone on ground that is competent enough to be able to navigate the many challenges or any issues on ground, then that's fine.
That's fine. Okay. Many thanks for all your submission. That's unfortunately I cannot take the minister who said Festus Keyamo, that was saying that, you know, we need to in terms of patronage of our local caterers. I wish that we have time for me to take that story, but unfortunately we cannot take that story. But this is where I say many thanks for creating time, you know, to lend your voice on issues that affect us all, because this is not just about particular sector. However we look at it, it could happen to anybody. Those that happen to, they never thought it could happen to them, you know. But thank you so much for creating time to create more awareness on this situation at hand. I wish you the very best as you continue to navigate your career path, because this is a career path and it has become a part of your life as well. So on this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show with our resourceful guest, Mrs. Kike Dennis. You know, it's been an interesting one, an enlightening one for that matter, that I feel that we all must take cognizance of and be best at putting a smile on somebody's face out there around us, no matter however small you think it is. And till I come your way, let's remember to be kind to one another. Bye now.